We do know that there are some youth who've experienced severe traumatization, especially in their earliest years, and that has played a
Right.
role in some of the disabilities they have, particularly in that upstairs brain in terms of how it functions with attention, memory, language processing, understanding cause and effect, other executive functions that can really get in the way of folks learning if we don't understand the needs that they may have around that. I was in a classroom. I'm doing some observations earlier this week, and of course I'll change some pieces of what I saw here to kind of illustrate what I'm talking about. But there was a student who was being understood, and this happens in schools all across the world, where the student is not doing the work, and even when they're better regulated, the work isn't getting done. And so I engaged with this educator, and like I do with so many others, to talk about, what do you think is getting in the way of getting started? And often we're taught as educators, it's well, maybe they just want attention, or maybe they just want out of the work, or there's something else that they want that's more preferred to that. And I encourage folks to go deeper. Why might they not be getting started? Is it because they can't remember what the first step is, or they see the whole thing that they're supposed to be doing and they're overwhelmed, and then the regulation that they had is gone? Is it that they don't have that skill yet? And once we can narrow it down to what's getting in the way of getting started, then we can provide supports around that that will also promote better regulation, because they won't be overwhelmed by the stressor of the academic task.
Yeah, which it kind of comes down to what part of this problem is hard. Like, what part of this? Because often it is something as simple as, like, I just can't remember to start, or I can do, I know how to read X amount of words, but without some pictures and guidance, I have a hard time, making sense, context, like getting the context of it, the comprehension. But just asking them, and they might not know, we have to maybe do some problem solving, but I doubt it's the whole thing. It's
Yeah, yeah.
and giving them some credit. They have still some strengths. There's something about this they probably can do, but figuring out where the crutch is, but still being able to say to them, but this part is good. You got this part. We just have to fix this part.
Yeah. And as you mentioned Ross Green, and one of the things he says is,
Mm,
seldom is the reason, I just don't wanna. Like, that's seldom the reason. We think that's the reason, but that doesn't mean our guess is correct.
yeah. Like, I have yet to meet a child that doesn't want to feel success, that doesn't want to feel love. Like,
Yeah.
they want to be successful. They don't want to fail. Like, no
Yeah.
kid wants to fail. They just might be in a state of learned helplessness, or they feel
Mhm.
like nothing works, so why try? And to me,
Yeah.
that's the kid, is being like, I've done this, I've tried, it doesn't work, so it's just easier not to care because
Yeah.
I haven't had any success so far. And it hurts too much to keep feeling this failure. So I just would rather armor up and say, I don't care. But truly, kids they want to feel seen, they want to feel successful, they want to do
Well, I
well.
think that's true of adults too. I
Yeah.
mean, I work with parents, I work with other family caregivers, I work with educators day in and day out, and we see these responses in adults sometimes where they're giving up. They're not, maybe they're too overwhelmed to try something new, but even if they're better regulated and we're experiencing reluctance, is it that? Is it that they're afraid to try? They're afraid to risk again. They don't have the skills yet to be successful, and it just feels safer to not try. Because we
Yeah.
if once we understand that, we can work through that together.
One of the things that comes up, probably, like, I mean, you work with teachers all the time, so maybe there's a few we can talk about, the questions that come up. And in your course, I love it. You have teachers asking questions and that come up a lot. I was
Yeah.
looking at all of them. I'm like, yes, these are things like teachers want to know. So go to the course. She answers all of them. But this one comes up for me a lot. And it comes up for me when I used to work as a substitute teacher in some behavior classrooms. And we have kids throwing desks. We have kids who have very violent kind of temper tantrums and dysregulation, and they get very physical. And you've got, every teacher says this, I've got 20 some other kids in that classroom. How do I honor the fact I know this kid's had a tough life? How do I honor their trauma here and everything they're going through, but also keep the rest of my kids safe? Because I
Yeah.
can't put all of their needs below his or hers. So, like, I'm sure you hear this, but like, that's probably one of the biggest ones I hear. So, like, how would you respond to that?
Yes, I hear it every day, and it's an important question. It's a valid question. So
Mhm.
my first response to that is always, I understand why you're wrestling with that. You care about the student who has big dysregulation, maybe has gone through some really hard stuff, and maybe still is. You care about them and want their needs to be met. And You care about the safety and well-being and learning needs of all of your students. We're required to hold both. That's our
Mm.
responsibility to do that as
It's so
educators.
hard to
So
hold both.
so hard to hold both. So hard to hold both. And then we have to throw in our needs as adults in these communities too. No wonder it's messy. It's messy. I really encourage folks to think of this in a couple of different ways. So we're going to create a plan around the needs of that student who is having that big threatening behavior. Because if what we're seeing is big behavior and repair, and then we just start it all over again and again and again, chances are we haven't structured things up enough. We haven't supported them enough. We're not in the work deep enough yet where we're preventing those episodes. And so that's one whole set of the work. But I understand you're asking about the other side of the work too. And that is, what do we do after it happens to support all the needs of the other students? So at the same time, we're thinking about how to meet that individual learner's needs, we have to be prepared to address the needs of the whole group that are going to come up. And I like to think of this in 4 steps, is what I encourage educators to do. And the first is, when there's an episode like that in your classroom community, we go back to those 4 essentials. First, you're going to pay attention to safety. All right.
Yeah.
So you're going to attend to the safety needs. You're going to lean into your protocols and steps that your district, your board, your school has in place to get everything safer. And then once it's safer, we're going to focus on connection and regulation before we focus on learning. So that to me often looks like saying to kids, that was a lot. That came on fast. I have some kind of stirred up feelings or shut down feelings in my own body. You may too. Let's circle up a minute. We're going to acknowledge what happened by saying that was a lot. We're
Mhm.
going to put ourselves in a role of a nurturing protector, a wise leader who knows what to do. So you can say to kids, we've got some folks helping that student. I'm going to help you, and I know how to help you right now. Your confidence, your wisdom, your regulation in these moments is key, because that's where children will experience that felt safety. You're their leader. They can look to you to help take care of them in this moment. And so one way to do that is to acknowledge feelings and needs. Invite everybody to share one feeling and one need they have. They can tell it to a partner. You can do a round robin around the circle and share. You can have everybody put one on a sticky note and show it to somebody if they want to, or not if they don't want to. And you can model that for them as well, saying, you know what, I feel a little stirred up inside. I need a moment to let it settle, or I need to let some of that out, whatever that might be. And you let them share what they feel and what they need if they'd like. And sometimes we don't know what we need. And so you can even say to kids, it's okay to say, I'm not sure what I need, or I need help knowing what I need, or I need time to think about what I need. And from there, we can do a transition then back into whatever's next. And we can do that in a regulating way. So I like to encourage folks at this point to use trauma sensitive movement. You mentioned yoga earlier. We know that yoga can be regulating. And I wrote a quick guide with Tracy Ludwig about trauma sensitive movement for the classroom, which brings in more choice than typical yoga usually does, so that it could be trauma informed in nature, meaning people are listening to their own bodies and making
Yeah.
decisions in these simple movements that are gentle to help them. And so you can
What
use one of those strategies in that moment to transition from that classroom discussion about feelings and needs right into what's next, because we know that that rhythm and routine for kids is so important in helping them feel safe too. We don't want to sit and talk about those feelings for 2 hours and move into a
No,
type
because
of
that's a therapy session, and
that's
I'm
point.
always I think it's just the kids feeling seen in their feelings, just saying like, and the teacher's
Yes.
job isn't to fix it. It's parents too. I'm
Right.
like, you don't have to fix it. The kids are just saying, see this, like just see that this is hard. And you're saying, I can handle your feelings about the situation, and I'm here and I'm not going anywhere. That's like the key to parenting too. I was like,
It is.
"You're not
And
fix."
it's so hard for us as
I
adults
know
to
we
do
want to
that.
fix it.
We
Teachers
want to
definitely want to
fix
fix it.
it.
Yeah, they're
I was
doers.
working
They're
with a
planners.
kindergarten teacher a couple of years ago. We were in the school, and she was working on the skill of, Dan Siegel's Name It to Tame It, just sitting with the kid with their feelings, mirroring it. And she was practicing it with me, and she went back into the classroom, came back a couple hours later. She goes, this stuff works. I can't believe it. This kindergartner came in from recess. He's somebody who tends to get dysregulated, has some big behavior.